Hey, just in case you don't ever watch this, I'm going to record this real short. But this is my board game concept, and if I hit play, it shows you like, okay, a bunch of people can join on the same mouse or whatever, or if I had game pads set up, it would show game pads here. And so if three people could play the same instrument, that's cool. Hit enter to start the game. I can navigate around the board. Here's my little widget showing like which player's turn and how much gold they have. It's just an arbitrary concept, it's not real. Then I click to roll, and then it shows where they can move, and that's basically what I have as far as that's concerned. But the way it's structured is I have different scenes. Oh, I'll show you one thing. Here is the debug panel. I'm going to block that off. And it shows that we're in the open lobby state. Now if I add a player or remove a player, you can see these events. You can see basically you can see what's happening in the state. And then if I start the game, you can see, okay, it goes to begin game, the player's turn started, begin turn. These are the animations that have to go. For example, the roll for movement animation is still going, but you can see it highlights the path through in case there's multiple transitions. It'll say this is the green and blue transition is the one that has actually happened. So it transitioned into roll for movement, which is a state, and this animation is still going. So if we look at the actual animation, it's this. This is the animation. It's not some timeline like tweened thing. It's just a node that says, okay, go, and it starts doing its own thing. And then when it's done, it says, okay, this animation is done. And then if you see here, it's cyan indicating it's running. If I click to end the animation, it fades out, and then we transition to player movement. So show movable spaces is done. Player movement selection is the next animation, which is, it's the ability for the player to select where they're going to move. So it's like the thing that brings life into it, the thing that accepts player input and everything. And so these are all states, and it just keeps a history of states here. Similarly, I can zoom into this shit, and everything I do has nice inertia on it. All right, now to kind of show you, during the gameplay, we have a certain number of states. The overarching infrastructure, or the organizational structure is we have scenes, and then we have things like lobby or gameplay, right, or debug panel. And then within those, you can see other sub-scenes like the pawns or all the map building stuff. The way that the states look in the gameplay section is, let's say begin game. Here you have just this here is for the debug panel, so it knows, okay, when this happens, this event happens, then we're going to transition into the next event, right? It's possible for us to make this an automated thing, so I don't have to declare all that behavior down here. But the reason I do it is because a lot of times I want to embellish stuff or make it really nice to see, so I keep them separate. When the state enters, it runs a command. So everything is command in, event out. We send commands in, and then we receive events back, and then we respond to the events. And that's the entire infrastructure. So what will happen is you'll have things like animations, movement, roll for movement. Let's say roll 1d6, right? What it'll do is it will say, when the turn starts, add this node to the animation roll for movement. Then, if start is called, it'll set visible and rolling, and it'll do all the stuff to roll. And then when we call end, let's see here, player input, if confirm, then set the rolling to false. Here's a delay that how long the die sticks around for, and then we run the commands roll for movement. So the UI just kind of is the user's interface for stuff, but the actual brains behind it all are the domain model, which is in the back. So I do commands roll for movement, the current player, and the roll number. Then what will happen is an event will spit out, and the event will be like, hey, the player rolled for movement. So this is imperative here, roll for movement. It's like, you do this. And then the player state, roll for movement state, when it gets player rolled for movement, the event, then we want to stop accepting events, say yes, the player rolled, and then if the player rolled and the roll animation's completed, then transition to player movement. So that's essentially how the entire front end works. In the back end, we have these domain concepts like player, and we'll have stuff like when the player rolls for movement, we do. Oh, yeah, actually, let's look at the commands. Um, Gameplay references. So in the gameplay references, we have links to all the scenes, states, events, whatever, so that when I do like app.gameplay.scenes.main, the actual reference is right here. So it gives me one place to keep everything managed, because these kind of strings with paths in them are not updated automatically when you hit rename. So we have to have a place to reasonably manage them, or else it's kind of annoying. But here's the commands. So if we say, let's see here, start turn, roll for movement, the player and the number rolled. So then we say player rolled for movement, and then we save the player. Save is a kind of a weird idiom, but what we can do with that is look at the actual player. Roll for movement. Now, when this happens, we set the remaining movement in the player. This might not stay around depending on how I model this, so who knows. But we record the event that player rolled for movement. Which player? This player. What was the number rolled? This one. So this player entity is responsible for creating all of the events. And back here in the references, back here in the command list, see gameplay commands? Back here in the command list, this layer of the application, this architectural layer, does not know what happened inside. All it knows is when it saves the player, the events that have been raised inside the player will get spit out into the event bus. And so all of the entities in the entire application that have subscribed to the event bus will be informed of that event. And this is the core of the architecture. So I will give you access to this in case you're interested in any of it, how any of it works. Fonts, by the way, are really stupid. You need to make a new resource with each font size, otherwise it's just going to be dumb. This is just the only reasonable way to do it. There's no way to improve that. And that's it.